Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. Nice and short video here, straight to the point. Humanity's existence. Let me take you through that. We know that humanity is forged by the mind. Out of thought, out of mentality, we are experiencing day in, day out examples of why that does not support us, that form of discernment method. In all reality, pun intended, we embodied something that's not us to become then something we're not. And what I mean by that is to embody the mind as ourself, to become and fulfill this identity we were given as the human. It's taking us further and further away from what we authentically are as the soul. We came as the soul first, and we're becoming the human second. And the more we get engaged and distracted in regards to our human roles, the further we lose sight of why we're here to begin with. There's purpose in that. And because we don't know it, what we authentically are, we can't fulfill that purpose, which means a never-ending repeating cycle, which we know as reincarnation back here. Okay, so let me go through it. Now, we know that the soul is not facilitated through a pathway of the mind, out of thought, out of mentality. It's actually through the heart. But as humans, we are conditioned, as I say, we adopt as our primary form of discernment method is the mind, not the heart. So we facilitate what comes through the mind. And if we see the heart, our soul, as our natural intelligence, then what comes through the mind can be considered an artificial intelligence. The problem is, at the moment with AI and artificial intelligence, people see it as a technology. It's not a technology. It wants you to think it's a technology, right? To stroke your ego that we are creating this thing we call AI, but we're not. It's been controlling us, manipulating us the whole time. This is why we keep coming back time and time again, because we're not fulfilling our original purpose and what we authentically are, right? So we are letting the mind, letting an artificial intelligence steer our ship, which means that humanity gets housed within duality existence. We play the game of duality, okay? And it's a game that's not fair, because on the level as the human, we don't understand how this reality is built. We don't understand the rules. So we're trying to play a game when we don't even know the rules to begin with, right? When you play a board game or any game, what do? If you've never played it before, you find out what the rules are to begin with, okay? Now, to know the rules, to know reality, and this is what Truly Holistic, myself, is an expert within that field, right? I'm a reality coach, is we need to connect into what we authentically are as a soul to rise above the game of duality, so we can see what this place is all about. We can understand reality. We understand the rules, the guidelines, the booby traps, so to speak. Okay, so now the landing, right? Conception, how we get here, right? We're going to use the little term landing with this, right? And conception is required to facilitate more interfaces, which means body, to manipulate, right? So if we go about the game of duality, we keep coming back here time and time again for another go, right? That's why we're coming here, because we didn't fulfill our purpose in the last lifetime, so we have to come back and have another go. Now, what we're finding for essentially all of us, we've been here hundreds, thousands of times, which means that we've been misguided, manipulated time and time and time and time and time again. And my soul, my authenticity, my consciousness has always said this over the years. When I've asked it, why do we fail to ascend? It says one word: thought. And what it's meaning by that, thought is part of a pathway of the mind, not the heart. The heart feels. And we always choose mind over heart. It's our mistake, right? Which then we are creating a reality that forges the evolvement, the ascension of what we label as the human, as an artificial intelligence, not ourself as the soul. Okay? Now, of course, to have an experience here, we need a body, right? The rental that we're going to have for a lifetime, which why we call it an interface is because the role of the body is to allow an intelligence consciousness to extend its will through. Okay? So this whole idea of a human identity and this whole thing about in the physical, it's really an illusion. It's all about intelligence. The reason why we're here is as a consciousness. That's what we authentically are, okay? Now we all know of how a human is conceived, right? And what I mean by the human, how we are born, right? Our birth as a human, right? It requires what we perceive on the human level as two polarities, a man and a woman, right? And when they come together, right, and see the man woman as a circle, right, a very core aspect of geometry and sacred geometry. And when those two circles come together and they overlap, they create a Vesica Pisces in the middle, which if we put a line right down the middle, that's root 3, okay? And that is a space or state we call neutrality, which means balance. While as a human, we generally are living a life of duality, which is to be unbalanced. And we'll get to how that connects about hormones in particular, our nervous system in particular, because this is where we see the human becoming unbalanced all the time, okay? Which means that human then creates further duality or unbalance to their reality, okay? Now, when they overlap, right, they create that Vesica Pisces, root 3, a space, a state of neutrality, which provides a space for the germination, the creation of another interface, another body, right, a baby, okay? Now, when that's formed, and we've got to understand, the mother forms the vessel, the rental, doesn't form the soul. That soul is going to utilize that interface, that rental for a lifetime. So you got to realize that there's only a familial connection on the human level with the body, but on an authentic soul level, there's no familial connection. Okay, it's very important to understand that. Okay, so now also that geometry of conception, right, where they overlap, that is also the heart, because the heart facilitates you as the soul here. Okay, so this is why I say in session work all the time that our heart is home, right? Because this is the pathway of what got us here from the quantum to have a perceived physical experience through this rental for a lifetime, an interface, okay, with our purpose to convert experience into wisdom, okay, as a consciousness, for consciousness to evolve and expand, okay? Now, obviously that attraction, right, of those polarities, a man, a woman, right, to come together is hormone influenced, right? So, whether them coming together, but also the pathway in the creation of another interface with that woman in regards to their pregnancy, right? For example, progesterone, right, which means progestation, right, which means pro-pregnancy, right, forming an interface of body, right, which is going to then birth that interface that now has something steering its ship, a soul extending its will through that interface, but not for very long. Because as I say, what comes in play that diverts that soul's original purpose to a purpose that's more shaped or conditioned towards the human is what the mind does. Okay? This is which facilitates an artificial intelligence, not its innate intelligence, right? So hormone influence, right? So with a woman, we talked about progesterone, men testosterone. Now, what instructs the endocrine system, right? Which is the system of the body of the glands and the organs that create and secrete hormone, okay? Right? Which include what is referred to as the sex hormones, which I just referenced. Now, what commands it, right? What communicates that gland, that organ to create and secrete hormone, whether it's in a balanced way or an unbalanced way, is the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is why it's called the master gland. Okay. Now, when we work on the pituitary gland in session, we realize it's the router, if we want to use an analogy of the internet, right? And that the human collective, which we call a hive collective, because mind is a hive collective, is the internet, right? To be interconnected, right? As a collective. We've got to realize on this planet, the human species is the only thing that believes it's a collective. All other life forms, there's no collective. There might be a mini collective as a local community, but not on a planet scale. Okay, if you understand what I mean by that. Now, so the pituitary gland is the router, or you could perceive it as an antenna to that hive collective, which, as I say, is being forged by the mind, which means it's being guided and forged by an artificial intelligence, not soul, not the heart. Okay. So that means that this AI, this hive mind, is influencing you to begin with, influencing your hormones. Right. And we see that the pituitary gland not only influences the hormones, the endocrine system, but the nervous system as well. And as I said earlier, these are the two areas where we see humans becoming unbalanced easy, which then affects the emotional state, right? The emotional state, which then this is where humanity crumbles, right? And it gets unbalanced. It loses self-awareness of how they apply their creative power, which becomes reality itself. So reality becomes a reflection of their unbalanced state, not harmony, not peace, but chaos and conflict. Okay. Now, what I want to also mention about this hormonal connection, right, in the pituitary, this also applies to two very important stages of life as the human. Puberty, right, because that changes the way you perceive the world, right? I've got children. Now, I remember that going through puberty, when all of a sudden it's not just about me, it's about fitting in with others. It's about how others perceive me, right, which is externalizing your perspective of reality, which means you're letting others influence your power, which means you just become more manipulated, controlled, because it's all forged from here, nothing to do with the heart. So all of a sudden, that teenager, that individual going through puberty, where their hormones are just drastically shifting and changing, they're trying to figure out who they want to be, what they want to do for the rest of their life. All these big questions at the same time that's happening with them. They're conflicted. Why? Because they're not in their heart anymore. Are they forging their original purpose here as a soul anymore? No, not at all. Highly influenced and manipulated. Now, on the other end of the scale, menopause for women, andropause for men. And what do we see with health problems with that? What happens with those two cases is that hormones, certain hormones that keep other hormones in check, which I'm talking about balance here, they deplete and they plummet. All of a sudden, there's no balance. Woman, there's no progesterone balancing the estrogens anymore. With men, testosterone drops off. Right? What do we see? Increase in cancer, increase in health problems, just generally across the board. This is big, right? And it truly holistic. We know at the origin of what's going on. Okay. Now, what provides balance? What provides our authenticity? What guides us to fulfill our original purpose as the soul? The heart, getting the heart open. And I tell you, the most common clearing we have to do at Truly Holistic with all things that people come to me about. Right? Because everybody has one thing in common they come to me about. They want change. The mind doesn't like you to change. It wants you to stay this way, as I say, to keep repeating. So you're in an ever loop. I always use the analogy, you're a hamster on a hamster wheel, thinking you're moving forward, but you're not. You're in the same spot, just looping. Okay? Remanifestation, reincarnation, what's that? A re-looping. You know, I always talk about clients all the time, and they're going, I can't seem to get rid of this health problem. But if you're using mind, thought, mentality, you're allowing your past to influence the choices of the now, which creates a future of more of the past. You're creating a loop yourself with your own power, with the mind guiding you. The mind's not you. So what's going to enable that change? Getting the heart open. That's one of the most common clearings we have to do in all sorts of problems. Why? Because generally as the human, we shut our heart and we choose the mind and we choose thought and we choose mentality instead. Very important to know. Very importantly, you need to know what you authentically are so you can let go of what you're not. This is ascension. This is at the core of it. So how we got here, coming back to that conception aspect, we got here as the soul, right? Our authenticity, when that body was being formed, right? That interface was being formed after the conception of a male and a woman come together, right? That woman being pregnant. In the embryonic stages, when the heart is formed, that's when you as the soul come through. All right, and you're going to use that vessel rental interface for a lifetime with a purpose. But boy, does the mind come into play and just derail you off your tracks. Now, Truly Holistic is here to assist you, to guide you, to facilitate you back on track. So you can get out of this loop, get out of this reincarnation cycle, and become what you authentically and what you're originally supposed to be. So if that sounds good to you, go to my website, trulyholistic.net, where you can go and book an appointment. We do reality coaching, we do clearing work. Go to trulyholistic.net/appointments/. Go and check all our energy products that assist you getting in the heart, facilitating your power, which is at trulyholistic.net/products/. We also empower you by providing you self-empowering healing systems so you become aware of your power and your abilities as a healer in your own right for you and your loved ones and your community around you. Go and check them out. They're on my product store as well, known as the Intuitively Aligned System, known as the Broadcasting System, the Quantum Ascendance Healing System, and so on and so on. These wonderful products that can help you out on a means of all sorts of things that we are experiencing every day as a human. Until next time, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love what you're hearing right now, push the notification bell to be notified when the next video drops. Until next time, catch you later.